Welcome to Innovation Rebels, the podcast where we shatter conventional thinking and challenge the status quo in pursuit of groundbreaking business ideas and transformative changes for humanity and the Earth. Join us for exclusive insights, inspiring interviews, and behind-the-scenes stories from visionary entrepreneurs to eco-friendly tech industry pioneers who are reshaping entire sectors to impact investors. Our guests are rule breakers, risk takers, and trailblazers who have defied the odds to achieve extraordinary business success on their own terms. Each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the most audacious business leaders who refuse to accept the limitations imposed by tradition and instead embrace disruption as a catalyst for progress. Our podcast is tailor-made for visionary entrepreneurs and forward-thinking individuals who crave unconventional wisdom and seek to revolutionize their industries. If you're tired of the same old strategies and ready to challenge the boundaries of innovation, Innovation Rebels is your platform for inspiration, insight, and empowerment. And now please welcome Swanette Kunze, your host and guide on this journey into the uncharted territories of future thinking and innovation.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, Innovation Rebels. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today my guest is Bill Liao. He is a Chinese-Australian-Irish entrepreneur, investor and philanthropic who has left an indelible mark on the business and social sector. With a diverse career spanning decades, Bill has consistently demonstrated his exceptional leadership skill and forward-thinking mindset. Beyond his ventures in the business world, Bill is deeply committed to environmental sustainability. As a co-founder of WeForest, a non-profit organization dedicated to reforestation efforts and has planted 100 million trees globally. He has made significant contributions to combating climate change and promoting ecological balance. With his captivating storytelling and thought-provoking presentation, he has inspired countless individuals to embrace innovation, resilience, and social responsibility. His ability to convey complex ideas with clarity and enthusiasm leaves audiences empowered and motivated. A co-founder of CoderDojo, a free global network formed to assist young people with learning computer programming, Bill has also co-founded Xing, a pioneering enterprise social network platform. Prior to these endeavors, Bill served as a COO of Definite, a telecommunications carrier. The author of 3 books, Bill has been a speaker at global events such as the World Economic Forum, the Globe Forum in Sweden, TED and TEDx, and at institutions such as the London School of Economics and the House of Commons. His passion for environmental conversation has earned him recognition as a champion for a greener future. So, wow, this is amazing. Bill, welcome to my show.
I'm very honored and glad to be here, Swanette.
Yeah. So even though I already gave an amazing introduction of you, let us understand who you became, the person you are now.
Sure. So the thing that I suppose marks me as diverse is that my dad was born in mainland China and he moved to Taipei. And my mother is Australian, Scottish English Australian, and she studied Asian literature. And she actually has a PhD in Asian literature. And she finished her degree in her first degree in Taipei and met my dad. And they got busy. So while I was in fact born in Melbourne, Australia, I can say with confidence, given the dates, that I was made in Taiwan. And I have a little gold sticker somewhere just to prove it, right? Unfortunately, back in those days, back in the 60s, being made in Taiwan was not a sign of quality as it is today, with, 90% of the world's silicon chips being made there now in the ultimate of precision. So, yeah, I'm maybe not perfect. Most of my early life was not exactly super happy because I experienced a lot of racism and bullying when I was young. And in fact, I dropped out of high school. And the only thing that really made me have some hope was that I was very into computers very early on. So I got my first hands on my first computer when I was like 12. And after dropping out of high school, I got a job in the industry, and I never really looked back from the perspective of being able to do something. Like, I had a skill that was very monetizable. Still, it wasn't until in my late 20s where I'd met the love of my wife, Kerry, and we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. So she really is the love of my life. And I'm still in love with her. At that point, though, we had our first child on the way, and we had sort of credit card debt, and both of us were kind of in dead-end jobs, and we needed to shake things up. And so I started looking at transformational work, looking at, different schools of thought about and philosophies about what life really is and what it really means. And my wife, actually, Kerry, came across a project called the Hunger Project, which uses transformative language to transform the lives of village women around the world. And they came up with this concept that hungry people aren't the problem. They're actually the key change agents to solve the problem, because they actually have the greatest motivation. And I remember pledging to them more money than I had, on Kerry's behest, and then quitting my job and going to start my first company, which is a coaching company, in order to fulfill that pledge. And that was very successful. I managed to fulfill that pledge within about a year, and I actually fulfilled 5 times what I'd pledged. So I went from being, 30-odd thousand minus to a couple of million plus in really 18 months. And that really underwrote what I'd learned about the various philosophies of transformation, in that the human world occurs in language. And so you better be really good at what you say. Because if you create language from the future to inform your present and you act accordingly, you can really have whatever you want occur. It's not going to come to you like a miracle, super easy. And at the same time, you could spend the same amount of effort and get where you don't want to be. Or if you guide yourself using language from the future, you can get much closer to where you do want to be, if not exceed that.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't understand what you mean by using language from the future, can you give us an example how this would look like if you want to create something that is extraordinary as you did, and what kind of mindset is behind this kind of language?
Yeah, so the first place you've got to get to is a place of no place, like no meaning. You've got to let go of your past, because the past doesn't exist anymore, and the future doesn't exist either. You've only got the present, and the present is either informed by the future or it's informed by the past. Most people look to their past and create language about their present based on their past. So, I studied to be a librarian, say, if somebody did that, and then they say, okay, there are no jobs for librarians, therefore my current future is I'm going to be out of work because I'm a librarian where there are no jobs for librarians. And that's actually a future given from the past. They take the language of the past and they apply it to the present, and they end up nowhere. And it's not their fault necessarily. It's just that most people don't realize that you can create language from the future that then informs your present, provided you commit to it. To give you an example, a friend of mine, Bernard Yeo, who runs a beautiful Chinese restaurant called Kai, decided that he was going to be an Olympian. And if you look at Bernard, your first thought is not sporty, right? Like he's a restaurateur, he likes his food, he works super hard. You'd not think Olympian as the first thing out of your mind, right? But Bernard said this to a bunch of us, and we all looked at him and said, great, let us know how that goes. We were supportive at Askins. Bernard discovered that there was a sport that he could do called shooting, where he could actually practice after restaurant hours. And he diligently practiced to become a very good shot. And he spent time figuring out the optimum way to qualify for the Olympic team in Great Britain. And he won exactly enough tournaments and placed in exactly enough tournaments to get on the team. And so if you look at the Athens opening ceremony, somewhere, I think a third row behind the British flag, is a small, slightly overweight Chinese gentleman with a big smile on his face, because he became an Olympian. He said he was going to do it. That was completely different to his past, nothing to relate to his past, something new from the future. And because he said he was going to do it, and then he took effort, huge effort, in service of that new language gave him a new present. It gave him new actions to do in the present. It gave him a new way of being in the present. And I would argue that because he committed to it with full integrity, he became an Olympian the day he said he was going to. That was the future giving him a new now.
Yeah, and this shows perfectly how, if we have the mindset of the past, of course, we had our experiences and we have interpretations of our experiences, which I would call, these are stories. They are not even true if you look back. But this is how we see the world. And if you carry this story into the now and create from there, of course, you will have a repetitive circle of same experiences over and over again. Whereas if you look into the future and you create from there and reverse engineer from there, you will create a different future, of course. And this can only happen in the now. And I would add also that as soon as you have this clear vision of what you would like to create, then you already put this intention into the quantum field. And from there, synchronicities will appear. Like, you will come in front of people who will support you. And as you said, he spoke it out, and you were, okay, how can we contribute to your success? So people will support you, but also other circumstances will happen, and you will read about things, or there were moments where you see, okay, now I'm in the flow and on my right path, and you quantum leap even what you can access, just not by stepping one step by the other, but really bringing it from the future into the now. So this is really like bringing a momentum, like going on warp speed, if you have a clarity on where you want to go. What do you think about that?
Saying that various people have various belief systems that can support them or not through creating a life they love. Whether they believe in quantum synchronicity, or they believe in God, or they believe in hard work, doesn't really matter as much as actually taking the first step and acting with integrity. So you can, I don't like the word vision, because visions are intangible. I like purpose, because it's very concrete in a way compared to a vision. So my purpose that I've designed for myself is a world that works for all living things while civilization thrives. And that purpose is built or founded on my core values, which I've also identified and which I entreat everyone to identify for themselves. And my core values are kindness, curiosity, getting shit done, family, and civilization. And they're not in order. Those are the things that I uphold the most. And everything that I do is in service of that purpose with those values. And one thing that I've noticed working with thousands of entrepreneurs is that those that have a purpose and act according to their purpose and are driven by that purpose, whether they've even articulated or not, as long as that purpose is a good purpose, they're very likely to succeed more than those who don't have a purpose. Like, if the purpose is the default of, I need to make money, that's not going to work. And the reason that doesn't work is maybe not what people think. So remember, we were talking about the past. So if you say, I'm starting a business because I need money, a money needing conversation is almost always a past conversation, and that past is continually re-brought into the present. So you need money because you haven't done the things necessarily that allow you to live within your means. And actually, there's a really amazing movement of people right now, a generation of people that are earning very little money and yet living extraordinary lives because they've figured out how to optimize their spending side. And so they don't need a lot of income. And that's a really interesting movement. Again, it's not the quantity of what you have or the quantum of what you have. It's how you use everything that's at your disposal, how you harness all those possibilities for a future that you want, that you've designed, rather than just letting it all set to default and repeating what you already know. And it takes a lot of courage and effort. You can't say, oh, I'm committed to a world that works for all living things while civilization thrives, day one, right? That's impossible. As you grow your capabilities and your network of people and their capabilities, things like that start to look like they can be done. And then they become infectious. And then through action that's aligned with purpose, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's the difference. Because I see a lot of people who go, I've got a great idea and I've got a great vision, and there's no alignment between actions and the vision they've had and the idea they've got. And so it goes nowhere. And after a while they go, but I believed in God, or I believed in quantum, or I believed in all these things. And I had this great vision and I had this great idea, and it went nowhere. So I've been betrayed by these things. And it's the other way around, right? Those beliefs, that to the degree that they improve your confidence and get you out of your chair to take action, the more you serve those beliefs, the more they serve you. And if you just rely on faith in whatever, unlikely to work. I'm reminded of a joke, there's a flood and a very religious man is in his house with his family, and the water rises to the first floor, and a boat comes and says, hey, jump in the boat. And they say, oh, no, God will save us. And then the water rises to the second floor, and a bigger boat comes and says, hey, jump in the boat, we'll save you. And they say, no, God will save us. And then the house is fully underwater, and they're on the roof, and a helicopter comes and lowers the ladder and says, quick, get onto the ladder. And they say, no, God will save us. And they drown. And they meet God, and they ask him, but we've been faithful Christians our entire life. Why didn't you save us? And God's like, I sent a small boat, I sent a big boat, I sent a freaking helicopter. What more do you want?
Yeah, this is powerful. Exactly. So it is also about taking action on what you want to achieve. And as you said, you are very much purpose-driven. So this can unfold, of course, in different ways of work. Like for me, I'm very passionate also about sustainability, about liberating humanity and balancing life here on Earth. So, but I have been like on the science part, I'm an engineer in chemical and environmental technology. I've been a business coach. I'm an intuitive innovation strategist. So these are different aspects. And at the same time, I'm still going what I call my mission, what I want to achieve here on this planet. So please continue a little bit more like how you live your purpose in different aspects. Like you said, no, you came in with debt and then you made $1 million out of that. So what happened next?
So then I reinvested that in another startup, and that got to $1 billion valuation. That was Davnet. And then I exited that and I reinvested into another startup, which failed. And then I reinvested the remains into another startup, which was Zing, and that succeeded. And I'd moved to Europe at that point. And then I joined SOSV and co-founded IndieBio, and that's been a huge success. So there's a lot of ways to reinvest that, capital that comes back. The thing that really is more important to me is that people often ask me, what are you passionate about? And my answer is universally, I'm passionate about what I'm doing. Because action begets passion. It's not the other way around. I see a lot of people searching for their passion, searching for their purpose. And actually what they need to do is sit down and design one and then take action. And if after a fair bit of action, no passion evolves, it's the wrong purpose. And if you knuckle down and you start taking action and things line up and your passion, fires up, it's probably the right purpose. So go for it. Design and iterate is an incredibly powerful tool. You're not going to get it right likely the first time. So refine it, try again, and take action. Don't do it as an intellectual exercise. Everything I've done has been in conversation with people, sharing my purpose, sharing the values, looking for people with the same values who my purpose touches, moves, and inspires. That's great. Like whenever there's something that you want to grow, if you can articulate it such that it touches, moves, and inspires people, and you act with integrity on it every day, passion grows. The effect grows. The chance of failure is low. Whereas if you just search for your passion, you'll probably not find it.
You said you created it in some way. From my perspective, somehow this purpose and this mission comes already within us being incarnated. So I would say that this is not only on the level of being the human creating it, but there is also this aspect of the soul that is here for evolving and creating something. What do you think about this concept?
So I think that, again, depending on what your faith is, depending on what your belief system is, your beliefs are distinct from your values. And so acting in accordance with something that doesn't directly communicate to you is very difficult. So you want to articulate that thing so that it becomes easier to understand. And if that happens to line up with soul destiny or again, whatever structure you choose that supports you in that, great. Again, if you try and divine it out of nothing, you're not going to get a great articulation. And I know plenty of people who thought they knew what their soul was telling them and they got it wrong. But because they felt right about it for an instant, they decided that that was their life for 10 years. Your point of view is not incompatible with my point of view here. Articulate it, share it with all your friends, and refine it. And that's going to be the clearest impact on the human world. If you can't articulate it well, then I suspect your soul is probably quite frustrated with you.
Yeah, interesting. So you said that you articulate what you want to create and, of course, have people around you that support you. So this is also about the environment. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have this concept of being, I would call it the lonesome wolf, creating by themselves, like having everything by themselves and not teaming up with others. What is your concept about that?
Lone heroes only win in the movies, and then only if it's a bad script.
Okay.
Like, entrepreneurship is lonely. Don't get me wrong. There is a lonely component to it that you can't succeed by yourself. And if you don't reward the people in your life and you don't bring others together around what you're doing, your chance of success is vanishingly small. To the point, in fact, that statistically, we learned this the hard way at SOSV and IndieBio and Hacks, such that we virtually never take single founders anymore because they're just so unlikely to succeed. We're always looking for 2 or more founders. 2, 3 is the ideal. I'll put it another way, if you have an amazing purpose and you cannot get one other person to believe in it such that they throw in with you, maybe it's not as amazing as you think.
What about that entrepreneurs are still kind of anxious to share what they want to create because of if you are not surrounded by the right people, and this is another aspect, people can talk you out of the idea.
So again, I see that differently. I love having people who are both positive and negative about the stuff that I do around me, because how else do you really test it? How else do you overcome adversity at the very first step? Like if you can't convince a naysayer to at least be neutral, you are not doing it well. And you won't know that until you get your naysayers. And I find this particularly with young entrepreneurs who have a lot of charisma, male and female. A lot of times, because they're very charismatic, nobody tells them the truth or that their idea or the articulation of their idea sucks in some way. And so they get quite far on that. And then they realize that actually there's a fatal flaw. So I would much rather surround myself with positive and negative people about it and continue to refine it until everyone at least is neutral positive. Neutral positive is a great place.
Yeah, so it is like also getting different perspectives, and we would say like do the failures quick and iterate from there. And this cannot happen if only people are out that say, oh, this is all perfect and great and continue. But you need the perspective of the criticism as well, and the one that perhaps brings in another idea as well. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, scientists and engineers convene themselves around a single word. The scientific and engineering covenant is convened around doubt. For without doubt, there is no scientific method, and without scientific method, it's not science. Now, someone who has grown up entirely in doubt has a skill set. They are going to doubt what you say. They're going to test it in ways you haven't thought of. And that's amazing. If you get onto an aircraft, you do not want an overconfident jet engine engineer working on the engines. You want plenty of doubt, right? Otherwise, we've never even set foot in a car, let alone a plane. So I see the mistake that a lot of people make in that they go, oh, I only want, positive people around me. I only want optimistic people around me. I've seen plenty of optimistic people run their companies into the ground because they didn't have enough engineers or enough accountants or enough people who understood mechanics of things and questioned. This is a fatal mistake. Now, it's very difficult often for somebody to interact with that kind of person if they're one other kind of person. Like the entrepreneurial covenant is convened around conviction. So is to the investment covenant. You have to get conviction before you can devote your life to it or get funding or get customers or get other people to join. And conviction and doubt are strange bedfellows. So that's also why I say it can be very lonely to be an entrepreneur, even though you have to do it with other people, because your job as a CEO entrepreneur is to synthesize clarity from chaos. It is to bring forth that one clear guiding light that everyone gets in behind, whether they are in downing mode or whether they're in supporting mode. Clarity, and particularly clarity in language, is what makes it work. That's how you get the flow. That's how you get the conviction. That's how you get the customers. That's how you get everyone pulling together as a team. Deliver clarity. confuse them, lose them.
Yeah, this is strong. And you said that you are, on the one hand, an investor, but on the other hand, you're also like the one who is inventing and being like on the entrepreneurial journey. So what makes you decide if you are like more here or more here?
It's a complicated time of life thing, I think. Yeah, it takes so much energy to be a successful founder, whether it's for-profit or not for profit, that after a while, you have to look at your life and say, can I instead take my skills and contribute to a much wider pool of new founders so that they can actually, so I can gift them insights that are really valuable because I've lived them, and that they can then go have even more impact than I could even with the best team. And so, yeah, that was the decision to become an investor and investor in very early stage startups, because that's where those of us who work with SOSV that have entrepreneurial backgrounds can actually contribute the most. And I mean, when I say entrepreneurial background, I mean founded or co-founded, led it, grew it, made it profitable, and exited it. The entire story arc, right? I see a lot of people who found something, lead it, and then it quietly disappears, and they call themselves entrepreneurs. And they go and then coach on programs. And they haven't done the whole arc. So they don't know the vital pieces. And so they give bad advice a lot of the time. We do not surround our entrepreneurs with those people. We surround our entrepreneurs with people who've actually done it, and all of it. And that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, so it means that when you are the investor, you are still also impacting the entrepreneurs with their business development and business scaling. So you're strategically in as well.
Yeah, and I'm the first phone call a lot of the time when something goes wrong, because I've seen it before. And a lot of CEOs don't have anyone else to call. Like, they can't call a later stage investor who's only worked at a consulting company before his investment firm, because that guy or girl doesn't know. They could call me because I've done the whole thing. So I might have an opinion that counts because I actually figured that stuff out the hard way. And that's a really good hack. It's a business hack, right? It's a startup hack, is being able to, figure out little things that work. For instance, I was talking to someone earlier today and they're saying, look, nobody's reading my emails. I'm trying to raise money. I'm saying, why on earth are you sending emails? Don't send emails, send FedEx, right? Rory Sutherland, former vice chair of Ogilvy, says this all the time. Nobody throws a FedEx in the bin. Everybody throws an email in the bin. So if you really want to get through to somebody, send a FedEx and handwrite the letter and include a small gift and make it memorable. And then you're going to reward someone for opening that FedEx. Make it easy for them to come back to you.
So I guess you still get a lot of emails and a lot of proposals on different other media, and not so much FedEx postages. Like, how do you handle that? How many emails do you get, and how many people, reach out to you kind of a daily basis or monthly basis?
Monthly, I can't give you the number because it's too big. I practice inbox zero, and I've practiced inbox zero for 30 years. So at the end of the day, all my emails are completed. There is nothing in my inbox. That's how I handle it. And I handle enormous volume. I use a tool called SaneBox, and Dimitri, who's the CEO of SaneBox, tells me that I'm in the top 3 email users in their entire network of millions of users. So I've written about this on my Medium account. There's a post there specifically of the system that I use. It's incredibly effective. And actually, Sanebox published it on their own blog because they loved it so much. So, yeah, I handle emails a lot. I do respond to people's inquiries. People send me a lot of stuff that's inappropriate because they don't do any of the research that they should. And so I will just send the word pass back to them. That's all I can really manage with so many. Like, I handle all my own email. I don't have anyone looking at it by myself. So we're talking, I have a hotkey combination that just says pass.
Wow. And I'm impressed because definitely I will store emails and then only come back after I see.
You see, that becomes a burden to your mind and your life.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be effective with that burden. And email, Slack, and WhatsApp are basically my three primary tools. And so I will respond to those all the time. Twitter, LinkedIn, I just get too many thousands of contacts there, so I can't respond to all those, and I don't. I respond to some. I have my assistant look at the LinkedIn ones, just looking for ones that might be appropriate. The problem I have is that if someone's done the research and they really know that they're fitted for our investment firms, Couture or SOSV, I'll, of course, give them a very good listening. I'll read it all and I'll respond to them fully. 95% don't know me at all, have done no research, and they're just spamming me. And those are the ones that get passed. And then there are a few that just spam without even thinking at all, and those just get deleted.
Okay, so what are the criteria for coming into your world? Of course, doing some research, figuring out who you are, and this is, of course, already a place where people can become informed. Like, if you handle so many emails and you said only like 5% are the ones that you're really reading through and understanding that this could be, for example, an entrepreneur you would like to invest in. What are the criteria? Can you give us a little bit more information about that?
Well, it depends on the fund that they're interested in investing. So if it's SOSV, they've either got to be a hardware or biotech startup, preferably that is also doing something impactful, that has only raised the sort of friends and family round, not later, and that they're willing to take their whole company to one of our programs like Hacks or IndieBio and spend the 3 to 6 months they will need to just working with their team on making their business a success. And if they're not willing to roll up their sleeves and dive in like that, they need not apply. And also, they shouldn't really be emailing me. They should just be going to our web form, filling it out like anybody else who would want to actually get into the program, and fill it out with passion. Then they've got a good chance of actually making it into the program. If it's Couture Fund, then they need to be slightly later stage. They should have raised some seed money or done an accelerator, and they should have some fit towards our strategic goals or our commercial goals. And they could be later stage there too. But there must be a reasonable understanding, and we publish on our website what we're interested in. And if they can't figure it out from that, me telling them isn't going to help.
So there's the clear information. Can you tell us what is the link so that I can also put it later in the show notes?
So SOSV.com and KituaFund.com, KITUAFUND.com. Okay.
So if people are now starting to understand, okay, they will figure out if they will suit into this program, what you said one way is to fill out a form, or the other one is to send you an email. What is the material?
The best way is to fill out the form.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's the very best way to get assessed quickly, because we have a team of people who look at every application all the time.
Okay. And what kind of material do they need to have prepared upfront so that this can be put into the form? Like,
so they'll need a blurb. They'll need to make sure their technology has a prototype that works. They'll need to have a decent sort of projection. They should have a video presentation, and they want to have a good team. They want to have a team that, good CEO, good technologists, builders, people who make stuff. Those are the ones we're really interested in. We're less keen on people who are just into sales and marketing.
What do you mean only less into sales and marketing? That people that just want to sell themselves, or what do you mean?
The reason that I co-founded CoderDojo is because so many people were applying to me saying, hey, we've got a great idea for a new software product. And I go, uh-huh. And they go, yeah, it's this. It's like Uber for cats or whatever, right? And you're going, uh-huh. And then you ask them, okay, so that's your great idea. Who's building it? Like, do you have a group of developers working with you full time to make that into a thing? And the answer in most cases was, oh, no, we're outsourcing that. We found a very cheap outsourced developer who's going to do a really good job. And that's a bit like saying, I'm going to create a brand new restaurant, the likes of which no one has ever seen, on the high street. It's going to have the finest wines and the finest decor and the finest wait staff, and it's going to have the best advertising and the best marketing. And you say, oh, great, so who's the chef? And they go, oh, we're outsourcing the food to McDonald's because it's very consistent and very cheap.
Okay, I get it.
And that's why CoderDojo happened, because I realized that not enough kids were learning to be great chefs with code.
Okay. But there's a possibility, of course, to learn programming, to learn developing.
When you're young, yes, because it's a language skill. The ideal time to learn to code is when you're 7 to 12.
Okay. Normally, we only learn this later on, I think. I was in university.
That's why there are so many. That's why there are so many terrible programs out there. It's like people who learn French at school, and they don't actually, when they're young, go to France and actually speak French. It's just not the same.
Yeah, and if they don't practice further on, again, the language got lost. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they start in university for the first time learning a language, that's really going to be very hard. Most people don't have that level of dedication. So you got to think about it this way. Coding is a language skill. And the best code combines huge creativity with very compact expression. In English, we call that poetry. Huge creativity, compact expression, that's called poetry. So the best coders are like coder poets. And so CoderDojo is designed to give kids the opportunity to become coder poets who play well with others.
Wow. Yeah, interesting.
It's free worldwide.
Yeah, super interesting. I've never thought about it this way. Of course, learning another language, if you want to learn Mandarin, for example, it is hard if you are already 40 years old, if you don't have like a nice girl there that you are, that you need to speak this language and you are really kind of passionate about that. But otherwise, learn it is more of a hard
and then try going from the conversational level to the creative level. To become a poet in Chinese, in Mandarin, a Mandarin poet is definitely another level. And that's a level that most people who learn a language late in life will not achieve. There's a few polymaths out there, sure, but the average person is going to have conversational Chinese or conversational Spanish if they take it up after the age of 20. Huge dedication to become an actual creative.
Yeah, I would like to speak a little bit about your creativity, as you are involved also in different companies at the moment, and of course, create their business development. What is how do you feel your own creativity and how you express it?
So The way I express creativity is twofold, right? I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer since I was 6. So 50 years I've been driving cameras. And that would be my best form of artistic expression in terms of imagery. I'm mildly dyspraxic and mildly dyslexic, so I'm not very good at drawing or painting or any of those things. I am, however, despite my dyslexia, a wordsmith. In fact, possibly because of it. I can throw words together in new ways that other people haven't thought of before, and I can synthesize clarity from that chaos in ways that other people can't. And that's probably my best and most well-honed skill that applies to startups. Being able to look at the big ball of spaghetti and draw out the most delicious thread in language is something that I'm actually pretty good at.
Can you give me an example how this looks like? I can imagine having the spaghetti and you pulling out this one that is super delicious, but how does it look like in practice?
How it looks like in practice is a lot of doodling. Like, you just can't look at the spaghetti. You've got to get your hands in and you've got to move it around and you got to sniff it and look at it and you got to dig in to find that delicious thread, right? And the first one you pull out might not be any good, but then you pull another that looks like it and it's better. And then you pull another, it looks like it's better. Creatives are frustrating to other people because a lot of what they do just looks like messing around. And that's because we're playing with stuff until we get lucky. That's another thing that Rory Sunderland says that I love is that, you as a creative, you play with it until you get lucky. And then inspiration strikes, something comes together and you go, got it. And then you test it because you can never truly trust your own opinion about these things. You got to try it on other people. And that combination of playing with stuff, having the stuff to play with, like having spent a lot of time looking at words, their meanings, how they sound, understanding the rhetorical forms, alliteration, etc., all of those tools you need to have. And then you got to play with them. And when you're playing, it's really good to have the past in the past. Because unless you create a nice big space for the future words to come in, the past will start coloring it. And that's never as tasty as the one that's new.
Yeah, so this also means that by creating the space and speaking the words from the future, you are disrupting systems. Can you give us some examples like how you think out of the box and start to find new ways of creating new systems?
So the first thing I'll say is I don't often think out of the box. Why bother thinking out of the box when there's an infinite number of creative things you can do inside the box? Like this idea of out of the box is overrated. You can put like Legos are all the same, and yet you can create a billion things with Legos and they all come in a box. Right? The more important thing is to be able to play, is to first get a clearing, like meditate, practice mindfulness, empty your past, make a nice clean mind, and then dump in all the stuff that you want to play with and play with it like a child and come up with stuff and test it. So one of the things that we were looking at with WeForest is how do you make it profitable for a corporate that's a retail corporate to plant a tree? How do you actually give them the opportunity to increase their margin with planting a tree? And we came up with this idea that we then tested that works. So one of the big problems for corporates, for retailers, and by the way, the corporate covenant is trust. So they're always very distrustful of things like startups. And you have to create a model that they can trust before they'll actually invest. But one of the big things that plagues them when you understand some of the retailers is the customer acquisition cost per unit is often very high. So if you want to sell a croissant and the croissant is, €3, that first croissant might even be a loss leader. You might actually be spending €5 just to get someone into the shop to buy a croissant. So if you can reduce the customer acquisition cost of a second croissant, you could actually increase profitability. So we hit upon this idea of bundling a tree with a second croissant so that people felt like they were doing something good for the environment, and the environmental impact of that growing tree is far higher than the extra cost of another croissant, which was there already, by the way. And so you could halve the customer acquisition cost between the two units. And then the cost of the tree would be like, €2. The customer acquisition cost is $2.50 each. So the net of the whole thing was actually lower. Because instead of 5 and 5 and 2, you're actually $2.50 and 2. So that's much lower cost to get much more product sold and a tree planted. And the customer feels great. Then how do you articulate that so that people feel good about it and so they can get it really quickly without looking at the business model, but just get the value? How do you make it familiar? So I came up with buy two, get one tree. A complete riff off buy two, get one free, but we just changed the F to a T. Very simple language change, very effective, profitable for everybody. The consumer gets 2 delicious croissants and a great feeling. The vendor halves their customer acquisition cost and gets to also have this great thing that they've got a tree planted. And those trees empower village women through WeForest to rise themselves out of poverty while fighting climate change. And those trees make clouds, so they also fight climate change in an accelerated way. And all boiled down to a simple piece of language: buy two, get one tree.
Yeah, this is amazing. And while you're sharing that, I feel so much enthusiasm. And you also said like this playfulness. I often miss this in the business world. It's also serious and very much goal-driven, and there is no space anymore for playing and innovating and feeling excitement about what you're doing. So how do you hold this kind of space for yourself and, of course, for the entrepreneurs you're working with?
So again, the business world is divided because you've got those that are convened around the corporate world, which is convened around trust, and those that are convened around the investment and startup world that are convened, or startup investment world, they're convened around conviction. So if you're in the convened around trust world, it's much harder, right? The big consulting firms, the banks, the big corporates, the global corporations, trust is the highest ideal. Even if they break it, they still need to have trustworthy partners to break it with, right? They need to rely on each other. Trust is the overarching covenant. And so it's much harder to insert yourself in there and be creative. It's possible, it's harder. In the conviction space, there's a lot of break things, move fast and break things. And so there's space for innovation, there's space for invention, there's space for play. Because there's higher risk tolerance. Play at its best is risky. You know, kids are not happy. Like there was a study that showed that kids who do not have unsupervised outdoor play by the time they're 12 never fully develop their ability to judge risk.
Yeah, this is interesting as when I look back, and of course I'm already a little bit older, we were out from the morning until the evening. We know when the sun went down, we had to be home because of having our dinner, but we played in the woods, and of course we fell down and we had our injuries, and roller skated and whatever. So there was kind of a lot of free space to experience our world and to grow in that. Whereas now, I would say a lot of children don't have this ability or this possibility anymore. They are kind of forced or even like by themselves to sit in front of a computer or mobile phone and experience the world.
It's not even sitting in front of a computer or mobile phone. I promise you, if you have unsupervised play with a computer, you can also have some of the effect. It's when you only have supervised play. When there's an adult watching you on the swing, there's an adult watching you in the classroom, there's an adult watching you 24/7. The child surveillance society, right, does not allow for kids to experience full play. And that's a problem. There's a tremendous Japanese TV show called Old Enough, where these little kids, like 3-year-olds, are sent by their parents to the store for the first time, and they don't know that there's anyone watching. And so they go on this real adventure to the local shop. At 3 years old, that is game-changing. That's like climbing Everest at 45, going to the shop at 3 by yourself with a list and some money, right? By the time you're 12 or 13 or 15, that is no longer a great adventure. So an opportunity is lost.
So how can we support children and young adults to be in this space of experiencing it by themselves and not being surveyed, and using this kind of experiences and skills for the future to become entrepreneurs?
It's very difficult because there is a lot of risk aversion built into our society now. So people, like especially the media and social media have put forth this idea that it is much riskier out in the world than it's ever been. And every time something bad happens to a child, it goes all across the media and everybody sees it and everybody gets a little bit more frightened. My own solution was to move to the countryside and homeschool my kids, right? And they had plenty of unsupervised outdoor play. That's the best solution is figure out ways to like have neighborhood watch, get to know your neighbors, get to know each other, create a safe space where there isn't the perception of monitoring. And at least there is a safe area.
Yeah. So, and having these skills, do you think that these are more like the basic skills you also need to live in a world that is rapidly changing right now with artificial intelligence and quantum computing and whatever is happening as new technologies that will come into our life right now? Do you think that it is related or the base?
The world has always been rapidly changing. Technological change appears faster than most things. But frankly, the world can change very quickly. If you have only grown up in a safe environment, it's hard to imagine that that equips you better than growing up with a risk appetite and having to self-rely. So I think the answer is kind of obvious. For want of short-term risk that's over-imagined, children are being held back, and the long-term risk is, I think, far more disastrous. You see suicide rates have increased. You see, people panicking more. You see right-wing ideologies and cults springing around, of various flavors. All of those things are symptomatic of people whose risk tolerance isn't properly developed.
Okay. So I hear that having this experience of risk also helps like understanding how much you can risk, for example, as an entrepreneur. And this, of course, will help you to become a better business leader at the end.
I'm not sure it's so much about that as it is that you understand that you survive consequences. Like, as Gen Xers, you and I went outside, we fell down, we got scraped, we had consequences to our risks and accidents, and we lived through them. And we learned that you can live through that. So you don't have to be afraid of it as much because you'll get through it. And I think that builds a much more resilient human than one who's never had the true challenge.
Mm.
And a paper cut or a scraped knee at the age of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 is so much more dramatic than at 18 or 19, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
The mental pathways are not built properly later in life.
Mm. So we had our challenges as children and through our adulthood as well. Do you still feel that you have challenges?
I take on challenges every day. That's the point. And why would I have such an enormous purpose if I wasn't up for a big challenge? The thing I've noticed is the bigger the challenge you take on, the smaller your everyday problems look. Yeah. So if you're only focused on serving yourself, your problems look very big. If you're focused on serving humanity, your personal problems look kind of small.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely. So we are coming now closely to the end. Is there anything that you would like to share that I didn't ask you?
Sure. There's some everyday language that people use that they should just stop using. They just have to stop using it. If you want to be successful, the few words that you can change to transform your life are very simple. And it's about speaking additively rather than subtractively. So if I say to you, oh, Swanette, you know, I really love working with you, but whatever I've said is subtracted and only what comes after the but matters. But is subtraction. If I say, oh, Swanette, I really love working with you, and whether it's positive or negative after the and, I haven't deleted the first part. So it's always going to be additive. Just replacing but with and everywhere in your life is a massive upgrade.
Yeah, this is absolutely powerful. Yeah. And also, I would say it's interesting if you say something like, I would like to, or I perhaps will. That is kind of not really setting the goal like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like being concrete in your language can be very powerful. Words like try and should and because is another killer, right? I didn't do it because. Well, you've just lost all your power to the because. If you then say, I didn't do it and I'm going to fix it, they're a totally different world to I didn't do it because.
Yeah.
I should do it versus I'm doing it. These little words, they creep into your language and they undo all the good.
Yes, absolutely. And we have now, I think, have done a lot of good for people who are listened to our conversation. And I thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and giving me also different perspectives on my own behavior. So it was also educational for myself, and I'm sure for the audience, especially also for everybody who is listening now. So thank you so much.
I'm very, very honored to be here and to share what little I know.
Yeah. So I will put all the links in the show notes for everybody who listened now and would like to reach out to Bill. And don't spam him with emails. Be clear, educate yourself first, and then please reach out.
And read my Medium account, because a lot of what I've talked about, I've written extensively on.
Okay. I will put also this link in the show notes, so read about the Medium account. So
perfect.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thanks, Swanette.
Thanks for being my guest. Tschüss.
Subscribe now and be part of an amazing movement that is revolutionizing industries, protecting our planet, and is driving humanity towards a thriving and better future. Together, let's break business boundaries and ignite positive innovation. Join us today.